Hello there, and welcome to Ellipses in ShawScope. With myself, the Gordon Liu, who has entered this much more than 36 chambers, as it turns out, of Kung Fu, as led by my two masters. Introduce yourselves, masters.
What's he on about now then, Darren? I'm Clive Davis.
And I'm Darren Jones.
And what happened to you at the very beginning there? I noticed you did trample on Nick's intro by going, "Oh fuck! What did you do?"
Yeah, I thought I had just pressed the X button at the top of the Zoom.
What does that do?
Close the whole meeting.
All right. I've never heard. I've never heard that referred to as the X button before. That's quite cute. So I didn't know what you're on about.
Well, what is it called then?
I don't know.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
I've never heard anyone refer to it as.
Well, what do you call it then?
I don't refer to that part of this. It's dead.
Anyway,
it's dead.
So yes, I'm Nick, and we're here today, gathered together to talk about I.Kuang, or Ni-Kang, or Yi-Kang, or I.Kuang, or Nai-Kang, or Yai-Kang, depending on however Shaw wants to type it up in English at the beginning of a movie, who passed away sadly last month, who was a massively prolific screenwriter and novelist, and he has written all three movies we're going to talk about today, or at least he co-wrote two of them, and then I think you know what, I wasn't paying attention.
You forgot to add the I think what you meant to say was passed away, sadly, right? You made it sound as if he passed away in a state of sadness, which he might have done.
I would imagine.
But he might have been overjoyed.
Transcendently happy? Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's possible. He must have felt like he accomplished a fair amount in his life.
He must have been exhausted. He must have been like, yeah. Oh, finally, I don't have to write anything. Like,
he must have had a repetitive stress injury from the typing, I would imagine. But anyhow, so we're talking 5 Elements Ninjas, which is also awkward for me to say ninjas because it's not supposed to be a pluralized word, but whatever. Lover's Blades and Human Lanterns, all made in the year of 1982, unless Clive wants to correct me.
No, you're not wrong.
Oh, exciting.
Well, to be fair, it does actually say 1981 on the card of 5 Element Ninjas.
Excellent.
The on-screen card, you mean?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There we go.
For your information.
Darren, pick up the slack. I'm going to go and check that
now. All right, so we're starting off with 5 Elements Ninjas.
Which that was for you, Ron. That was for you.
Which does connect to Ninja in Ancient China, which we watched not too long ago on another one of our podcasts, which was a bit of a remix in part of this and Weird Man, 2 other Chang Cheh movies. But anybody want to do the introduction for 5 Elements Ninja?
I thought I just wanted to reiterate as well that, yeah, this is, so usually our main thoroughfare is supposed to inform our Not in ShawScope spin-off, but then a bit of a feedback loop happened this time, right? Because we did do Ninja in Ancient China, and we'd previously done The Weird Man. So we figured, we might as well do the other one. And because normally we do this chronologically as well, right? So we're still stuck back in 1959 or something. But we've jumped ahead, right? In order to take in 5 Element Ninja. And as a consequence, I.Kuang died around the same time. Actually, I'll fess up, I wanted it all to be smooth and tie up. So I actually poisoned him. And but don't tell anyone. So then we
used that spiky ring from the 5 Elements.
And then we had an excuse to do an I.Kuang tribute. So so there we go. Filling in the holes in your not quite satisfactory enough introduction. But we won't say anything about that, Nick. Let's move on.
I'm glad we're moving past it without bringing it up.
Yeah, no. I mean, I would never do that in public or anything like that. That would be shameful.
Well, like I said, this is not public. This is the most private podcast on the internet.
Yes. Just for us.
Yeah, Gold Star members only.
If anyone wants to start a terrorist cell, then they can become guests on our podcast, and no one's ever going to fucking find out.
Yeah. Yeah. In between Shaw reviews, yeah, we can talk about, airline schedules and security measures.
Security arrangements.
Yeah.
The dark web has nothing on us.
Yes. Anyway, carry on, Nick, in Infidel Scope. Let's talk 5 elements.
Well, basically, what we have here is a rivalry, it seems, between two Chinese martial arts schools, one of whom hires a Japanese guy who. But one of my favorite pieces so I watched it in Mandarin and in English, and it's interesting where various points there you see the differences in the choices that are made. But whoever they got to dub the poor guy who, when they first introduced this Japanese samurai master, who's really dressed in a sort of dressing gown, doesn't look very convincingly Japanese to me. That blue.
Well, he's on holiday, isn't he?
That's a terry cloth thing he's wearing. But he's I'm mere Japanese, not worth our time fighting, or no, not worth our chi fighting him. Let me go, like. And then you see the Chinese version, and he's got a totally normal speaking voice, and so why give him the world's most nasal, squeaky voice? Anyway, they fight. He commits suicide because he loses our Chinese fellow with his axe. This kind of escalates a rivalry. Then Japanese guy fails to kill. Is it Lo Mang? I think at that point, and then he has to commit suicide, and things escalate. The ninjas get involved. I'm not going to do a whole plot breakdown. We can.
Fair. You've had a good run at it, because to be fair, this is a pretty threadbare plot, and we'll get into it in more detail. But just to get ahead of myself a little bit, this is one of the reasons this isn't quite classic Chang Cheh for me, just because it's got all the good stuff. Apart from, it's not one of his strongest plots. It's a bit of a episodic set piece fest, right? So if you're going to try and be objective about it, I find it's not quite top tier, even though I know it is a total fan favorite. It's not quite top shelf. It's not up there with issues of Mayfair and Hustler. It's like down with the Puzzler and whatever else was on there.
So
it's broken down.
Now that you've gone there,
yeah.
And this is where I get banned from the kung fu community.
Okay.
Can you not say exactly the same thing as what you just said about 5 Element Ninjas for the whole of the Venoms and post-Venom output of Chang Cheh?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, for example, oddly enough, one of my not least favorites, but because it's less, in a way, it's the inverse of this, because it's less chock full of foo, is the original 5 Venoms. Whereas you could argue that's actually more of a properly constructed kind of murder mystery story, but it's less fun. So I suppose yes and no is the answer.
Yeah, but you go chronologically after the Venoms, and I include my favourite, Crippled Avengers, through Invincible Shaolin, through all the House of Traps, through all the whole of the rest of the output. That is all. It's just set pieces.
No, it's true. You're right. But what I would argue, I suppose, with Crippled Avengers, there's a bit more, like, for example, Crippled Avengers feels more like that's exactly what it's supposed to be. Like, don't give a fuck, we're just doing this. Whereas this, it's like, I wouldn't, like, if you bring it up after the fact with Crippled Avengers, did you notice that film had no story? You would go, oh yeah. Whereas with 5 Element Ninja, aka Super Ninjas, I felt it as I was watching the film, if you see what I mean. There's a kind of attempt at a bit of a story. And it's quite convoluted, really, in a way, despite not actually being. It's that weird mixture of convoluted and non-existent. I don't know what you felt about it.
It's funny. I've been liking this more and more each time I watched it. I think I felt exactly that way the first time I watched it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It grows on you.
Which was a few months ago, and then coming back to it to watch it for the show, watching it twice. Each time maybe because now I'm not expecting a tightly plotted kind of where I love the fact that the first part of the movie is like introducing these various 5 elements ninjas and their ninja approach, and then finding a way to undo. It's so simple. It's just like a mirror kind of movie, right? The front half and the back half are just, we need to figure this out, and with a training montage in the middle, and that's the movie. Yeah. And that's all I really need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But as well as that, it's Chang Cheh doing what Chang Cheh does best, which is gathering up a cast of 20 and throwing 18 of them against a row of spears so they all die
in the first 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah. and then it just gets whittled down. But that is kind of what he does best, is just get a bunch of talented, in this period, Taiwanese action stars, and just throw them up against a wall and then just watch them die, which is because that's half of the pleasure of a Chang Cheh film, isn't it? Is just watching everyone die.
Yeah. There's a great scene in this where after the martial arts school goes out to try to deal with the 5 elements ninja at the very beginning, and then when they've all been wiped out, and then they're just going along like lifting up these white shrouds like along this whole line of dead guys, and at one point in the English dub it's like, oh, his guts are all over, and they put the sheet back down, go to the next guy.
Or maybe more accurately, Darren, sending up 18 people against the wall and then going and falling asleep in a chair while someone else actually does the action, apparently.
Yeah. So they say. Although Robert Tai, I read an interview with Kuo Choi the other day, and Robert Tai's definite assertion that he definitely directed a large portion of the Venom's films, throughout a number of them. Kuo Choi actually says is bollocks.
Is that right?
Kuo Choi actually threw down and said that definitely didn't happen.
That's interesting.
So that's But I still like to believe.
Well, from what angle was he coming? Was he saying no, that's bollocks, Chang Cheh did it, or did he say it's bollocks, I did it?
No, he's saying Chang Cheh did it.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
Yeah. Well, I think reading between the lines, he's saying no, Robert Tai definitely didn't do it.
Right.
I think he did.
I like that story as well.
Yeah, this is a post-truth society.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So,
stop
whatever feels right
Darren.
to you.
Stop the steal, Kuo Choi.
Let's go, Chang. Chang.
I did notice that that both of our Weird Man, both of the actors who play Weird Man are in this. Basically, our lead, right? I don't know. I'm saying his name. I'm not going to say any of these names right today. But Chang Cheh, was our trampolining Weird Man, and then I.Kuang, or is it I.Kuang? He because he also shows up in Lover's Blaze as well. And was there a thing where he was always asked to play people 20 years older than he should be in like ridiculous?
Does put a lot of old age makeup on across the 2 films, doesn't he? It has to be said.
He just doesn't look the part really.
It's a shame as well, because his rival, you were talking about 2 rival schools, so it's Kwang and Chan Chen is the other one, right? It's a shame Chan Chen doesn't have much to do with this film.
Dracula's lover, you mean?
That's right. Dracula's bit of fluff, Chan Chen.
Mm-hmm.
His exotic boy toy from the Orient.
And
that's a deep cut, that is. You have to listen to all the podcasts that went before to get that joke.
And then we do get Lo Mang, who always seems to me like he he plays the kind of the righteous, upstanding good guy in this, to the point at which he even turns down sex with Fishnet's ninja, because that would make him a bastard.
Yeah.
Yes, by taking advantage. But he seems like a swaggery kind of like, he makes more sense to me in Human Lanterns when he shows up as the kind of wizard-looking assassin guy.
Yeah.
It's just something about his face. Like he has a certain menace to him that I find it's weird to see him play such a straight character in this. Like
he basically looks like the embodiment of roid rage, doesn't he? He's
yeah. But he is great, and his his whole death scene is like fantastic. That scene where he's like nailed up to the door and there's the black smoke billowing out around him and he's bleeding down his front is just, it's a magical shot. Like it's totally
proper visuals, that is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talking cast members, though, I think my favorite addition to, as in not necessarily a Venom's regular, is Michael Chan Wyman as the main bad, because we've spoken Michael Chan before on Foods, right, where we were talking about how he's that level of hard enough to have that stupid haircut. He doesn't have that here, but he brings a certain gravitas, doesn't he, Michael Chan?
Yeah. There's a palpable menace about him and his performance for sure. And he's almost more believable to me as Japanese as well, more than the guy who shows up at the very beginning with the terry cloth robe. I can believe him as being Japanese. One thing that's weird is if you watch a lot of Chambara, like the Iado, like the swordplay in Chambara, that whole first scene where they're having the fight and it's a lot of shapes. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with the katana that I've never seen before to accommodate somebody fighting with their hands versus a guy with a sword, and that throws me out a little bit. The rest of it, actually, I didn't. It didn't. But that first fight.
This is something that Ray Logan brings up in his commentary. Actually, he does say a few times, "Oh, look, there's someone using a katana in a way that no one would ever usually actually use a katana, right? Like it's not designed to do that. You don't use it in that way, right?" But
yeah. Although later on, like when all the ninja are using them when they're running around, it wasn't as It's just that scene is weird. It's weirdly choreographed. He has to keep stopping himself from cutting, a low mang, and it just anyway.
Like you said, it's there to accommodate shapes, isn't it? And it's Chang Cheh is in charge of the ships. And does not give a fuck about any sense of reality whatsoever.
So I think we want to clear a bit of space here to talk about a long festering sore that we've wanted to kind of pop, right? So I will go ahead first, and the two of you can follow. I'd quite like to just say, just to get it out of the way, because then we can talk on a wider. So there's a shitload of amazing action in this film, like non-stop, jaw-dropping formation work, and that's about it. And if that entertains you, then it's kind of a bit of a classic of its kind. And I just wanted to get that out of the way, because then we can talk a little bit about ninja context, right? So you both go ahead. You say whatever you want to say, like specifically about this film, and then maybe we can duke it out about the historical ninja context.
Sure.
Because I spent a lot of time researching that, so I'll be damned if I'm not going to talk about it.
No. Me too. I'm looking forward to getting into that for sure. But I mean, I loved the 5 elements. The wood ninja guys inside their rubber tree suits were great. The guys, the burrowing ninjas, which we've talked about before and we'll be getting back to very shortly when we talk about this ninja nonsense, were also fantastic. And the way that they dealt with them, in fact, the whole final scene where they go off and train with the Chinese ninja master, and then we get this great connection to Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which I'd like to talk about as well, where their Chinese ninja master tells them, "Oh well, the Japanese ninja arts are derived from Taoist magical kung fu, and this was used by, and I can't remember his name, but one of those two wizards that shows up, not Weird Man, but the other one who shows up in Romance of the Three Kingdoms, who does the oranges trick."
Yes.
Yeah. So he basically used ninja arts and Taoist ninja magic in order to annoy Cho. So that was a kind of a cool connection.
Yeah, and what's it called? It's vagabond something, isn't it? Vagabond kung fu or something, isn't it? Yeah.
That's the only Romance of the Three Kingdoms element in here, right? We spoke before about how much is in Weird Man and Ninja in China.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's the only direct reference, I think. But they do mention like Cho by name, and I can't remember his name, but the wizard guy. But yeah, so you got your tree ninjas, you've got the water ninjas, who again, I noticed in the when I watched it in the Mandarin dub, they had subtitled what comes up, and what comes up is water spiders.
Yeah.
The screen when they float up with their little bags.
Well, they're the bags, aren't they? The water spiders apparently are the bags. Thank you, Bay Logan, for telling me that, by the way.
Yeah. I found it out just from looking up all of this crap on the internet and finding out there's even an actual Wikipedia entry on Mizu Gumo, right? Water spiders, which apparently may or may not have been a real thing. I do love Fishnets Ninja, and as I discovered from watching that Kagemaru.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
Go ahead.
I would hazard a guess that ninjas paddling huge water spiders are not the real thing, but
bullshit.
Yeah. No, we'll get to this. We'll get to this, Clive. This will be debated furiously here in a moment. But I loved Fishnets Ninja, and what I was surprised was when watching the 1963 Japanese ninja movie Kagemaru of the Iga clan, that he wears fishnets, and so did all of the other bad ninja guys wore fishnets.
Yeah,
and I think
a lot of old ninja stuff, Japanese ninja films have fishnets all over the place.
So it was just the genius of Chang Cheh to be like, that would look a lot better on a girl.
Well, they would have done. I mean, there's that Kunoichi ninja film from like '64, and that's fishnet-tastic. So yeah, I think that was out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought she was wonderful. I was quite sad when she died. I was like that. I would have been happy to have her in the movie till the very end. Yeah, I don't know. It was lots of moments where I was just like, wow, that was amazing. That was crazy. There's one part in which our Chinese martial arts master. It's when they're like firing the burning arrows into his room, and it's his death scene. But two of them just like whip right by him, like, and it's the actor. It's not a stunt man, and he's inches away from. I was like, that's dangerous.
Yeah, they're not fucking about the Shaw brothers, are they?
Right.
Oh. Well, they got a barracks full of people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
cannon fodder.
Yeah.
And then the multi-tool I really liked. Basically, this thing that they've got, like, it starts
Swiss
out
Army
as an axe.
spear.
The Swiss Army spear, yeah. It starts out as an axe, and then bit by bit, to face each of the 5 elements, it becomes a different kind of weapon, right? The sickle comes off. It becomes a giant black flag in order to wave away the smoke. It becomes a pair of stilts in order to do that. Was fantastic. Well, I'd forgotten that from the previous time I watched it.
Yes, and also that brings us to, and get your bingo cards ready, the connective tissue.
Hey!
The several bits between this and Ninja and the Dragon's Den.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got stilt fighting, plus you've got destructing tits.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
There's a
and flags and smoke.
Yes, there's a
flags and smoke.
There's a definite thing where Ninja in the Dragon's Den, I think, was like, we're having a bit of that action in our film. I think that's without a doubt, right? This is it's a weird semi rip-off of this film, right? So there's that. And yes, as you said, the trees, the second best tree monsters, I think, after From Hell It Came.
Yeah.
A lot of limbs being lopped off. And so to get to, before we get to that then, Darren, do you have anything you wanted to say just in terms of just this film and enjoyment of this film in particular?
Yeah. I mean, what I particularly like, and again, it's like I said before, it's about Chang Cheh throwing the cannon fodder against, in this case, the ninjas. I really like this kind of environment thing. It's almost like a computer game, isn't it? Like a good computer game where you have to go to the fire zone and then the water zone and then the stone zone and then the tree zone, the wood zone.
It's like the crystal maze.
It is exactly like the crystal maze, yes. Richard O'Brien pops out, plays his little flute or whatever the fuck he does.
Harmonica, I think, yeah.
Harmonica, that's it, that's it. But with loads of gore. And that's the other thing. That's the other thing I wanted to mention is that way back in the 90s when I first started getting into Kung Fu, and I'm sure you'll have the same experience, Clive, I heard about this film, and what I heard about this film is this is gory as fuck.
Right.
And in fact it is.
Yeah, it doesn't.
This has got, like, I think, well, yeah, Bay Logan may have mentioned it, but I think it was in my head anyway. But yeah, this has got Italian levels of gore in it.
Yeah. Well,
excuse me.
Spoiler alert. I mean, Michael Chan gets ripped in half at the end, right?
Yeah, well, he gets ripped in half. People get ripped into 5.
Yes. Yeah.
Someone trips over their guts. Which is the famous bit everyone's heard of in the film. But it's all there's quite a few disembowelings. There's loads of limb loppings. Everything's protracted. There's blood spurts. It's a joy to a gorehound.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it immediately, obviously, and again, get your bingo cards ready. But it immediately brings to mind some of the stuff from Lone Wolf and Cub, right? The movies, right? The Wakayama movies. That same level of and even. I mean, again, and they are ninja weapons, and they take some time to tell us at the beginning of the movie that this is all well sourced and well researched. I love it's one of the few movies that takes the time to tell you that. Oh, trust us, this all is real. Like, this is all real stuff. But the big claws, like the little claws, all that stuff, just adds extra levels of slashy ultra violence, right?
So speaking of those references, so I went and looked them up. And 2 of them I couldn't actually find. They mentioned Matsunaga and could be anything. And Teruo Doi, and I couldn't find anything about Teruo Doi. But Hatsumi Masaki and Nawa Yumio, those are definite real people. And Natsumi Masaki especially, he's kind of well known. So he's part of this Bujinkan school. And some people, there's been some controversy about whether he's been kind of making stuff up in terms of historical revisionism and stuff like that. But basically, he's the guy who did he worked on the Shinobi no Mono series, and then as a result, worked as a supervisor on the Bond film, You Only Live Twice.
Right.
And he was the one, he also turns up, if you remember, there's that tokusatsu series, Sekkai Ninja Sen Jiraya, and he's like the older, wise, is one of his famous on-screen kind of roles, but he's mostly a behind-the-scenes guy. And Yumio Nawa, I think, is a disciple of his. But it's interesting, just so in terms of references that you can trace back from this film that they mentioned, that you can only go back as far as the Shinobi no Mono, You Only Live Twice thing. But as we'll get into it, there's a whole lot more to that. Before we get to this incarnation with, because there's color-coded ninjas in this as well, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But gold lame ninjas.
Yeah.
So
actually, maybe I'd like to pause here just for a second and say that some of my research was done through corresponding with Keith at vintageninja.net. And actually, I think it's a great resource. Actually, I discovered a fair few things I didn't know, and it did lead me down some paths back to maybe getting a little bit closer to answering some of these questions about the more magical elements of the ninja movie, right? Or ninja folklore. So anyway,
sorry, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah,
that was like the second interruption of everyone. But should we lay out, because not everyone who was listening to this may have heard what homework we actually set ourselves on the last not in ShawScope. So should we maybe lay out what our homework was and then tell everyone about it?
Yes. So, well, I suppose basically what we've been trying to figure out is we've been trying to pinpoint. So, so we did. I think this came up particularly in reference to Ninja and Ninja China, right? Because Ninja and Ninja China's ninjas were, in the early 90s, were doing all these things that ninjas seem to have been doing for about a decade in films, right? The burrowing smoke bombs, suddenly they're colorful, they're not all in black and stuff like that. And as we'll get into, some of those elements, the magical things, go back much further, further back than you might expect in cinema. But they're of a very specific type. Like, it's when the ninja goes from semi-historical, plausible to, well, Richard Harrison, right? And we were trying to figure out at what point and where did this occur, right? And when we were talking Ninja Final Duel on Achafuz with Toby Russell, he gave us a bit of a clue in terms of Robert Tai directly referencing some Japanese manga that he had at hand, right? That he was, specifically copying panels from for Ninja, the Final Duel. So, and that set us off to try and figure out what that manga might be, but I don't know if we're actually anywhere near citing a specific one. But it gave us a bit of a clue into what we might want to be looking at. Right? So yeah, I think that's kind of where that's where that was the rabbit hole we were heading down, right?
Yeah. So where do the colored ninjas come from? Where do the element specific ninjas come from? And also the burrowing.
Yeah.
So what's the first instance of that? First in cinema, second in maybe literature, if we can find it. Yeah. So that was kind of the homework, wasn't it?
Well, that, and as well, I think what became evident to me while doing my research was, and we'll get to this, but it went beyond. It wasn't just because that stuff, some of that stuff turns up quite early, but it's then when does it cross over? Because a lot of the history of Japanese cinema, for example, has been quite domestic orientated and hasn't really spread internationally, right? But I think that's why I think as soon as it started, as soon as the ninjas turned up in Hong Kong stuff, and Hong Kong stuff had a much bigger distribution, I think that's when it explodes, right? Previous to that, I've had these examples over the decades in Japanese film, but it didn't necessarily go anywhere. It was like a dead end. And then as soon as the seeds put into Hong Kong cinema, which has much better distribution, that's when it suddenly goes all around the globe. I suspect, apart from maybe a few isolated examples, like famously Roald Dahl traveling to Japan on holiday, seeing Shinobi no Mono in the cinema, and then putting bits of it in You Only Live Twice, stuff like that. But do either of you disagree with that kind of basic premise?
No, I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting to me is just how far back the folklore goes, and it seems to be that it comes out of these folk tales in Japan about the ninja, which go back hundreds of years, right? Really, and they have this strongly magical element. And so I had assumed wrongly, and so this is part of my conversation with Keith at Vintage Ninja was I had assumed that basically it began with kind of stuff like the more historically grounded, realistic approach that you see in movies like the Shinobi no Mono series, right, where they are basically human beings who kind of are involved in subterfuge and assassinations and spying, and have a certain amount of, like, they have martial arts prowess, but they're not disappearing. They're not
right. They're not magical beings.
They're not transforming into other, objects or there's none of the magical stuff. But then from going through his website and talking to him, it was like, well, no, actually, that maybe comes first. The magical stuff comes first, and the more grounded stories actually come later on.
Right. It's almost like a retcon. Like they've decided, what if these people did exist?
Yeah, exactly.
Even though there were Koga and Iga ninjas,
yeah,
but they were more akin to spies, right? And I think if you'd have seen a ninja like back in the day, it wouldn't have been someone dressed head to toe in black. It would have more likely been like a farmer in a field, just like eavesdropping, or it would have been. They wouldn't have looked like what you think a ninja looks like. From what I understand, at least.
Yeah. That's kind of the feeling that I got too.
They were more like embedded, like proper spies, right? They would go to a village and they would just hang about, and then when they had a chance, they'd run off and give their information to whoever they were loyal to, right? Plus, as well, I think they were very changeable motherfuckers as well. I think they were, whoever was benefiting their particular tribe, or that's who they would ally with as well.
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think that to some degree the magical ninja gets reintroduced through comic books. That seems to be this kind of 50s, early 60s thing of things like Kagemaru, and there's a few other quite famous ninja manga of around that time. But Kagemaru especially is aimed at kids, right? And that movie with Matsukata Hiroki in it playing the part is very much it's that weird. It's like kids' entertainment as only Japan makes it. So yeah, a bunch of people are going to die, and there's going to be a few moments of like reasonable violence for what's supposed to be a kids movie, but you'll also get a little kind of happy kids movie kind of song, and you'll have like an animated opening, and you'll have the ninja, the Koga ninja in that do seem to be, and again, I don't know if there's a something may predate them, or they may be drawn from actual from folklore, but one of them has spider powers, right? One of them throws fistfuls of web everywhere. One of them can breathe poison gas. Most interestingly, the one Jubei is a chameleon, but that chameleon way, the way it shows itself in the movie is he can burrow, and he pops out of the ground, right, suddenly, and he can also. I've seen comic panels where he's standing up against a tree and literally becoming the tree. And so Jubei seems to be potentially, the comics version of Jubei anyway, seems to be one of, but then again, I don't know if there's a pre-existing version of him, right? In a folktale.
Matsukata was in actually quite a lot of ninja. He was like Mr. Ninja for a while there, which is something I wasn't, because I know him later in life as a bit more of a action guy.
Yeah, me too. And then he also stepped in, which is interesting because he stepped in when Ichikawa Raizo dies. He steps into both of his film series. I think he did a late Shinobi no Mono.
Yes.
And he also did, he did the last two Nemuri Kyoshiro movies.
Yes.
Not really convincingly. I like him as an actor, but not a great replacement for...
He's not Ichikawa Raizo, no. So the other big name as well, seeing as we are talking... if we are talking this lineage, is the character of Jiraya.
Right.
Jiraya.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was listening to someone talk about Jiraya, the character of Jiraya, the ninja, as created by a writer called under the pseudonym of Onitake in 1806. Apparently,
he's a big kabuki guy, right?
Yeah, but I think his Jiraya was turned into a kabuki.
Oh, okay.
Which is where a lot of the elements of what we think of it now came from. And before that, there was something called, I think it's called a kibyoshi, which is like a very, very early form of manga, which the Jiraya character was adapted for. And the interesting thing about the Jiraya character is well, two things. Number one, whenever they've actually adapted from the screen, he's, as you might think, counterintuitively, he looks right because he has a sword. But in the original novel, he's a gunslinger, which is something that doesn't actually turn up in many of the film versions. He's actually a gunslinger, like a cowboy or something in the original. And the other interesting thing is that he learns toad magic. So it's the Magic Serpent film. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that. That's basically a version of the Jiraya story where he rescues a toad from a snake. And so,
yes, yeah, and then they become gigantic kaiju versions of the toad of the snake, and they battle in front of a castle, and then a gigantic inflatable spider.
Right. Yes. So this is where it gets interesting, and then as well the thing about that as well. I was thinking about, and it turns out this is unrelated, but it's an interesting example of how you might get things mixed up because humans are pattern looking things. Right? But I was thinking, as soon as I heard about that, I was like, toad magic. Hang on, 5 deadly venoms. I was thinking, oh yeah, toad. They went with the toad, and then but then apparently that is actually an older Chinese thing. The 5 poisons, ancient Chinese 5 poisons. Which thing that made me laugh, if you will allow me a further tangent. So there's this ancient, Chinese 5 poisons bit of folklore, which is snakes, scorpions, centipedes, toads, and spiders. So that's the 5 venom thing. But what made me laugh is there is a Chinese Communist Party version of the modern 5 poisons, and if you will allow me, they are quite amusing. They are Uyghurs, Tibetans, Falun Gong, members of the Chinese democracy movement, and members of the Taiwan independence movement.
Fucking hell.
Yes, so those are
fucking hell.
5
Good God.
venoms according to the Chinese, according to Wikipedia. Anyway, I don't know, that could be wrong.
Okay.
That did give me a chuckle. A chuckle, and also, all those executed, oppressed people, but in a light-hearted manner. So there's a lot of this. There's a lot of ninja bollocks going on, right? There's a lot of ninja bollocks going on a bit further than you might think, and then you have, as well as Jiraiya, there's the Sasuke Sarutobi character, and there's a few like folkloric legends. But again, I would stress that all this stuff is mostly happening in isolation, in almost like an echo chamber, referring to itself pretty much within Japan, right? I'm not sure how much of this stuff got out and released.
But I would argue that manga was the biggest export, more than even Japanese cinema. And we do know that Japanese films were seen in China through the 60s and 70s, reasonably widely, more than they were. I mean, they weren't shown in America. They weren't shown in, but I read stories about people like, Chow Yun-fat and stuff like that, talking about watching like certain Japanese movie stars that they thought were amazing when they were teenagers and stuff.
The thing is, we don't know specifically. Yes, I mean, for instance, The Killer, right, is a remake of like a Ishii movie from the 60s. And there's things like that. But I don't know. I still think it was spotty. I'm still not convinced that, a lot of this stuff was playing outside. It could be. But if I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment, let's assume it didn't, right? Let's assume it's, and there's a few bits get released here and there. So I'm thinking my theory, my working theory for now is this. My working theory is the interface, the crossover, where the modern, colourful camouflage ninja beloved of IFD and Filmac and Franco Nero and Shokasugi and all that is born is, I think, between 1980 and 1982. And I'm thinking it's Shogun Assassin, specifically that version of the Lord. Because I think Shogun Assassin, that version, I think that shot around the world even more so than the individual episodes of Long World.
Oh yeah, that was everywhere.
Yeah,
that went everywhere.
Yeah. And it was a condensed. That's got all the kind of ninjas.
Am I right in saying the Shogun Assassin is only available in English anyway, in terms of its original version? So there's not, it's stitched together by the West.
Yes. From the first two movies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that film is a Western.
It really is its own thing in a way.
Yeah, exactly. But it's with a fucking banging soundtrack.
Yes.
Great soundtrack.
Yes.
Yeah. And a good dub job. Like a really a lot of Japanese stuff that's been dubbed into English is painful. But that's not. It's a great dub.
No, but that's Westerners saying these films are fucking amazing, but what if we just took all of the plot out and just put
left with the
action and blood in there, with some Tangerine Dream and
it does have actually, in a way, it does have a lot of the stuff that we see in Five Elements. You can actually see there too, right? We have swimming ninja with the reed pipes.
Yeah.
We have female ninja in kind of fishnets showing their boobs. We have burrowing ninja, not in that film though, but we do have the under the sand ninja that show up in the River Styx part. We got the big ass claw things. There are a lot of elements.
My second candidate is Shogun's Ninja, the Norifumi Suzuki film with Hiroyuki Sanada and Sunny Chiba and Etsuka Shomi, because that has...
Is that the one where the guy projectile vomits stuff onto people's faces?
That's Ninja Wars, which might also actually be part of this kind of... I think it all snowballed, right? Snowballed as in a snowball getting bigger, as opposed to...
yes, let's not. Thanks, Clive.
That's a term I haven't heard in a very long time.
Okay.
And so because this one has a band of ninjas led by Makoto Sato, of all people, who they actually act like spiders. They climb about in trees and act like spiders, and they wear camouflage ninja outfits as opposed to black ones. So we're kind of, again, slightly edging another phrase that could be taken.
Yes.
Towards. So we're edging and snowballing our way.
Right. Towards.
I think Shogun Assassin, Shogun's Ninja, and I think also Five Element Ninja.
Yeah, I think so too.
But in that title is the bit we haven't got to, which is the elements.
Element, right.
So I didn't get anywhere on the elements other than, and that's the thing, And I mentioned in one of the last podcasts that you see elemental warriors, fire warriors and water warriors and earth warriors, designated by their element and their skills. But they're not ninjas in much earlier films from the early 70s.
Right.
But I couldn't get anywhere on when is the first film with a fire ninja and a wood ninja and a gold ninja and an earth ninja and a water ninja.
Or you mean specifically before, they're not necessarily ninja, but they're practitioners connected.
No, I mean ninja. No, I mean ninja.
I think this is it.
Take that. That's easy to take back.
I think Five Elements Ninja is the first place where this appears.
I'm thinking it might be the first place as well.
Because one of my conversations with Keith over at Vintage Ninja was after asking him if he knew if there was burrowing ninja that predated the ones in Lone Wolf and Cub, and as it turns out, then he was the one who put me on to Kagemura, which does have one. Where's the first gold or silver lame ninja you ever saw? And he said, as far as he knows, it is this movie. It is Five Elements.
So I was going to ask you that if you specifically asked him what our quest was, and he came down around the same kind of area. So we're still a little bit. I mean, the other thing as well, I mean, just in general, I'm not overly familiar with it, but there was the Kage no Gundan Shadow Warriors series, a series of movies and a TV series, which was exported with Sunny Chiba as well around about this period. But I don't know how much magical stuff is in that, or whether it's a bit more kind of grounded, right? So that's another thing that I was swirling about. And then and then you get things like, so the Shokasugi things, which are a little bit later on, but they're interesting to think in terms of, like, so do you think they were like Ninja 3 The Domination, for example, seems very much something that was being made around the same time as Ninja The Final Duel was being made.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taking these elements and taking them to the nth degree, right? And if I remember, Revenge of the Ninja had burrowing ninjas, and so I'm just to take it forward a little bit then, because if you work it back, maybe you can. But again, it still seems to be this 80 to 82 area. If I had to put money on it, and it's definitely 500 Ninja, and I guess maybe Shogun Assassin, maybe Shogun Ninja, or maybe something else, a few other things like Ninja Wars. But is there anything that either of you came up with that might punch a hole in this theory then?
Nope, no, not really.
No,
I did look Wu Jing, which is the 5 elements theory. That there is a big Wikipedia entry on it, and there is a martial arts section of that entry. And so the 5 elements are the same 5 elements we see in the movie, except it's metal as opposed to gold specifically. But evidently there is I guess Tai Chi, which is kind of an underpinning of many martial arts, right? Has the 5 elements in it. But then there's Japanese and Chinese martial arts that have this metal, water, wood, fire, earth, but they don't necessarily seem to have the ninja component of
no.
I directly related to the elements, right?
I think that might have been born because the other stuff is literally, well, it is literally elemental, right? So it's not surprising that would go back as far as you would want to take it, right? Because it's at a certain point all civilizations start putting things together in terms of, hang on, wood, water. So I think we have kind of, even if we haven't necessarily pinpointed like the precise, like who and again, that might not be a thing. It might just be whatever's in the air at the time, right? That someone makes Armageddon, someone makes Deep Impact, someone makes Dante's Peak, someone makes Volcano.
Right.
I wish I had chosen better examples, but you know what I mean. Sometimes,
Oh.
So
someone makes Godzilla, someone makes Gorgo.
Right.
Someone makes King Kong, someone makes Queen Kong.
I don't know if that was the zeitgeistiness maybe that Clive's talking about.
There's a few things in between them.
Don't spoil Darren's fun now, Nick.
Anyway, I mean, back to the movie. Third time's a charm, because I'm liking this more and more every time I watch it. I see myself revisiting this.
They're more like a leprechaun all the time.
Oh, Jesus. It's I think this movie is tons of fun. As I said, lots of violence. So great kung fu choreography.
To paraphrase, I would say it's lots of fun for everyone in the big yellow teapot.
Sure, yeah. Okay.
Did you get trapped in and burnt to death in?
Yeah.
Yes.
The ninja set fire to and plug up the spout.
Boil you alive.
That was the later when Mattel went a bit darker.
Yeah, that's it. That was the early 90s.
Yeah.
When they decided to give He-Man, edge.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, more edging.
Actually, I don't know if Big Yellow Teapot was Mattel. That was probably something. Whoever made them Sylvanian twats.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I did notice that the female ninja her name's Junko in the subtitles. That she does tie up or have him tied up very much like in the Katsu, Roman heroine. When he's all trussed up like a ham there for a while, but
there's some mixed feelings, isn't there?
Yeah, that's that whole segment. It was the middle part is almost like a sitcom with his like calling her nuisance and stuff like that, and the whole will they won't they, and then it's quite effective when he just jams the sword in her side later on, and he has his one moment of like, I did the right thing. Did I do the right thing? Just this, and then
and who would have thought that Lo Mang and rookie Chang Cheh would make a good substitute for Laverne and Shirley?
Yeah.
I remember that series as well. That the episode where George stabbed Mildred. Regardless.
Anyway, lots of fun.
Are we ready to move on to the next film?
I think so. That's Lover's Blades, also 1982.
Mm-hmm.
Who directed this, Clive?
Well, I'm glad you asked me, Nick. That would be Tony Lau Chung Koo.
Okay.
Whose other credits, quite an interesting one of those like exploitation all-rounders. He also made Magic Curse, Tiger Over Wall with Hwang Jang-lee, Holy Flame of the Martial World, which we spoke about, and Holy Virgin versus the Evil Dead, the film in which Elvis Choi transforms into a literal dickhead and pisses himself.
Yeah.
Nice. Some
good shit going on there in that filmography.
Yes. Tony Lau Chung Koo has made some quite interesting films.
This is clean family fun, though, to be fair.
Yes, I think so. So this one has so should I have a go at the plot? Love the.
You please do.
Right, because I have my notes, but the thing is, this has been a few days, so let me just.
I can get on the plot if you want to.
Go on then. If you feel.
Yeah, I'm fairly okay with it.
Yeah, all right.
So there are some magic blades, the lovers' blades, yin yang blades, right? And the horrible emperor wants them, right? But the owner doesn't want to give them to the emperor, so he hires a security company to transport them to safety. But the security company are a bit odd, really, because there's there's the man with the big sticks with the fists on them.
Yep.
And then you've got
which I couldn't even see, I have to say, in the first version I watched, which was the subtitle version.
Yeah.
The print was so muddy and effed up that I couldn't even see what those were until I watched it without subs. And I was like, oh my god, those things are crazy looking.
Yeah, and then you've got the 4 swordsmen as well. So you've got the 4 famous swordsmen.
A quick correction here, Darren. I don't think he's the emperor. The Qing dynasty is where we should mention. I don't think he's the emperor, is he? He's like, this is a character played by I.Kuang.
No, the emperor doesn't feature in the.
We don't see him. Yeah.
No. Oh, sorry, I thought you were saying no.
No. Wang Lungwei is not the emperor.
Mm-hmm.
No. I mean, not Wang Lungwei. I mean, am I getting 2 films confused? No, this one. Quan Feng is the hero. Apparently, he's the one who requests because he's having a martial arts tournament or something. Not a tournament. He's celebrating his birthday. It's a bit confusing, but he's having a celebration, isn't he? And he's invited all these people to come there, and he's also asked to borrow the lovers' blades. But he's not the emperor, is he? He's like a official or something like that.
No, but the emperor wants to intercept the blades in transit because the emperor wants the blades.
Does he want to intercept them, or is he just sending Wang Lungwei?
I don't know. Well, I only just saw this. I only saw this a couple of days ago, and it's the first time I saw it, and I watched the shit version. So something in the subs might have been missed on me. Anyway, it's not that relevant. Anyway,
no. But I just wanted. I think my interpretation was, and I agree with you. It's a little because it's a bit of a confusing kind of story in a way, but it's my way of reading it was he sends Johnny Wang Lung Wei along with just to watch from afar. So Quan Feng's character doesn't keep them. That it makes sure they get back to wherever they came from, right? And because Quan Feng's character is like, and again, they don't really mention this. They don't. This is based on a novel, as we should say as well, by Yin Zhong, right, or Louis Cha. But he's obviously some sort of slightly renegade troublemaker who the Emperor's afraid of, which is why they decide to try and assassinate him at the end, right? But
yeah.
So the Blades are going along this journey, and the Wang Lung Wei character is just kind of keeping an eye on them, right? Yeah. Rather than trying to steal them.
That's fine.
Well, it's funny, Darren. That's exactly my reading as well. Was yours. So possibly Clive may have paid closer attention to those dodgy subtitles than I do, because that's kind of, I assumed that the Emperor was trying to steal the blades.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well.
But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, because all that matters is there's blades in transit and they get nicked.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the blades are like they will give near invincibility to the people the two people who use them properly, right? That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're together blades. Yeah.
And they exchange hands a couple of times as the movie plays out, right?
Yeah. So carry on, Darren. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, and you've got, and also in this retinue that are meant to protect the blades, you've got these 4 comedy swordsmen who are really good at fighting, but are also there for comic relief.
Yes.
This is Chan Lao who leads them. He's the opium smoker.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a hell of a pipe he's got.
Chan Lao again, snowballing, edging. Carry on, ShawScope. Continues. Chan Lao, Lam Fai Wang, Yon Fai, and Chang Kam is the fatty of the group. Yeah.
Yes. I initially, again, because that print was so bad, I thought he was also playing like in makeup, like that he had, like he was supposed to be playing a woman. But I realized upon watching the cleaned up version that no,
he just looks like that.
Kind of rouged up a little. He's got red cheeks. That's about
it. They're all meant to look weird, aren't they? Because one of them's got like a plaster on his nose.
Yeah,
the other one's got a funny
moustache.
Yes. Yeah. So everyone's kind of a comedy kind of stereotype character.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they're meant to protect the blades. The blades get intercepted by husband and wife team, whose names I haven't written down, so someone will have to help me.
Quarreling wife. Well, in the credits I read, it was just quarreling wife.
Was that Yen Tak?
Yen Tak and Candy Wen.
Well, there you go.
Who's got a bit of a. Who reminded me at first? Is that a no? She's too young. She would have been. What's her face from? Oh, this is good. I've totally forgotten the Karen Mock. She's got a bit of a Karen Mock.
Oh yeah.
Good, isn't she?
Yeah, but also, funnily you should mention it earlier. They're basically George and Mildred.
Yes.
So they successfully steal the blades, but because they bicker so much, the blades don't work for them.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm slightly offended that you said you happened to bring, as if that was an accident. I was.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. The master weaver behind the scene.
I watched George and Mildred the movie as prep, so I knew to make sure I knew what I was talking about. Is there a George and Mildred the movie?
I think there is. Yeah,
it might have been. There's definitely a Bless This House, isn't there?
Yeah. I was talking to a colleague of work the other day, and not him, but one of his friends had a thing for Mildred.
All right.
Out of on the buses, and also the landlady character in Get Carter.
Oh yeah,
who are actually quite similar looking.
I could sort of see, funnily it's that whole scene where she just is in the rocking chair knitting while he's sex talking his girlfriend. Yeah. My wife and I love that scene. Both of us were just.
No one can watch that scene and not love that scene.
Yeah.
A challenger. But anyway, I just thought if you're if in that particular scene you've got a choice between Britt Ekland and Lady in Rocking Chair, then generally speaking, most will fall on the Ekland side. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, George and Mildred nick the swords. All the while, Hui Hung and Ming-Yan Man are kind of watching on and kind of also interested in acquiring.
Yeah, and Cara Hui as well isn't she? She's Quan Feng's daughter, isn't she?
Yes,
Daughter,
she's the daughter of Quan Feng.
Yeah.
Till we don't realize till later on. And also, it's funny when you watch enough of you know you're watching too many kung fu films when Cara Hui is introduced and she doesn't have her hair up and she isn't wearing boys' clothes, and your immediate thought is not she's a woman, is she'll never get away looking like a boy like that.
Yeah.
And then it occurred to me, oh, hang on, this is one of those few films where she's not even going to pretend, right? It's just she's just a woman, right?
Yeah. So anyway, lots of ups and downs, and lots of blades kind of getting stolen, getting nicked. Lots of really, really good fights.
Yes.
Really good choreography by our friend. Go on, Clive. Go on, Clive.
Well, of course, it's our good buddy, Hasuhisia. Yes.
Fucking great job. Great job on the choreography.
Assisted by Yen Tak and Chui Fat. Chui Fat's in there as well somewhere.
Yeah. Anyway, so eventually the scholar and Ho Young Hung get their hands on the blades, start to feel attracted to each other, start to kind of fall in love, and then all of a sudden they can work the blades.
Yes.
In the meantime, the scholar gives Wang Lung Wei the shits.
Yes.
That is a joke. That is a joke that goes on for 40 minutes.
Quite a long time, yes.
George and Mildred.
Although I will say the soundtrack to his repeated diarrhea attacks as he keeps running back into that construction site, thing, was very... I almost bet my money that it was actually done by Oliver Onions, that it was like a De Angelis Brothers. Like it so sounds like something that they would have done. But yeah, that so was it like, again, it was hard to catch, but what was it that he had told him, I've poisoned you and the only way to deal with this is that you have to give yourself the shits in order to pass the poison?
Yeah, because I think he gives himself the shits because he's
not
poisoned.
To get rid of it.
Yeah, that's what I...
Oh, that's it. Oh, I see. Yes, so
he tells him, I poisoned you, and the only way for you to deal with this is you're going to have to shit this out. So he runs off to take mass doses of laxative tea, and then pours his guts out. That's what I think has happened.
Or he's got the builders in, and they're so slow when they're doing...
Is that like the painters and decorators?
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to shit all over there, like paintbrushes or whatever back there.
So is that the diarrhea equivalent now? I've got the builders in.
Yes, I think
I've got the shits.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing as well, did you say you only watched the low quality version, Darren?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you probably
it's a very different movie.
Yeah.
And I would recommend you go back now.
What I wanted to ask you then, Nick, did you notice, because I was wondering if my eyes were playing tricks with me, or if it's something they subtly do through the film. So when we first see the blades, they just seem to be metal. They're just metal blades. And then as the film progresses, they become slightly more like they look
green
like
jade or something.
Kind of,
Yeah, I noticed that too, yeah.
Oh, okay, you did notice that in the...
Yeah, but it's a lighting effect. It's almost like that's what happens when the blades are activated, is how I kind of understood that. Because they go red later on.
Their highest level is red when they hold hands.
Yeah.
Yes. Danger! My voltage!
Yeah. So, this is the last thing I'm going to say on the matter, right? But
is this going to be diarrhea talk?
Sorry?
Is this diarrhea talk?
It is, yeah. You all know how much I like a shit joke in a kung fu film.
Yes.
But this is worth the entry price alone to see legendary, mean, badass villain Wang Lung Wei get the comedy shits in the middle of 2 or 3 fights.
Yes.
I can't emphasize this enough.
Yeah, it's a bit like it's a bit like if you were watching a Death Wish film, and Charles Bronson suddenly had to run out the frame with his trousers around his ankles.
Yeah.
Like that.
Or Christopher Lee as Dracula getting the shits.
Right.
You know, because he brings that level of menace.
That's because Chang Cheh's loosened things up there.
Up to the elbow, apparently.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I'm the same as you, Darren. I assumed he was the catcher all the way, but I suppose you try and mix it up.
It's not for us to judge.
No, absolutely not.
Whatever gives
Do
them
what thou will.
happy fangy faces. Yes. Anyway, so yeah, it all culminates in a big showdown down at the birthday party, and then there's a big plot twist. Should we give the plot twist away?
I would if I totally understood it. I would, but
yeah, it's a little hard to parse. Because for a moment,
there's a double twist, right?
Yeah, they twist the plot and then they take it away again.
Yes, yeah.
And they reset the plot.
There's a moment where we get a bit of a Luke and Leia, thing where
don't bring Star
Wars.
Yeah,
no, that's especially for you, Clive. That's
don't
especially
pollute this space.
Yeah, and then they undo it. But the exact mechanics of why they are well, their dad turns out to be a eunuch. That's actually the most exciting plot twist.
Yeah.
I was like, he's what now?
Yeah. And he's got two wives, and they're both pretending.
Right. I guess that's why he's got the peel off mustache as well. I realized because
he can't grow one. He can't grow
the mustache. Yes. Just figure that out right now.
But the confusing thing about that is, I understand it all. The only bit I don't quite understand is what he does as an eunuch in the Flash, like exactly who he releases and how that relates to that bit is confusing. So I understand he was an eunuch, and I understand that they think the father and he's not. But then when it gets into the specifics about who he released from prison and why, that was confusing.
But I assume those two men who die in prison that he tries to release, it's their wives and their children that he basically adopts. But one of the kids is spirited away, so that that's what I took it as.
But basically, there's a fucking huge scrap, like you said at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, which is great, and there's also like a bit of hidden secret door cave action as well.
I'm gonna say there's a part that's just so awesome because it's a moment that's just so manly in a way, or so whatever. So like it's where he has to shut the party down. He's like, I'm sorry everyone, I will feast you again should I survive the rest of tonight. Like
yeah, all the while the four swordsmen who only came there for the food
right,
are really pissed off.
Yes.
Because they keep going on throughout the kind of sequence. When are we going to eat? Oh, it says 8 o'clock on the invite.
There's a bit earlier on as well, because there's a few comedy moments seeded, not too much time, but there's a Jan shits bit, and there's another bit where they're sitting around a campfire and they're so hungry, someone draws a picture.
Oh yeah, chicken on the paper. I laughed at that.
Yeah.
That was a really good gag.
What did I?
Are you hungry? Let me show you this picture. He doesn't even draw it. He's got it. He's ready to draw.
Yeah.
So he unfolds this big picture of roast chicken, and everyone's really happy with that.
Yeah. I hazard a guess that I would have been less than enthused in this situation, but it works. So yes, great action. It has to be said, the action is really, really fucking top notch.
Wonderful.
And it's not overly showy off in a way. Like there's not much in the form of like people doing acrobatics for no reason. It's just boom, 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 boom. Like it never misses a beat. And there's loads of it. It's through the whole film. There's loads of actions of the whole film, and just in case there wasn't enough, there's this huge, great big scrap at the end where everyone's fighting everyone. It's brilliant. But for me, what I wanted to bring up as well, because the things, I mean, there's a lot of, I enjoyed this film. I'd just like to say, very enjoyable. Not a classic, but just a blast to watch.
Yeah, solid entertainment.
Yeah, another Shaw production, right? But for me, the thing was, Meng Wen Man, because that's some, I knew Karahoy and obviously Wang Lung Wei is just fucking. The more I see Wang Lung Wei, I'm as much as I love, the other great kung fu villains and Huang Delian. There's something about Wang Lung Wei is like my guy, like.
Yeah.
Because he's got that look, like he's effortlessly fucking charismatic and scary, and he knows his shit. But at the same time, you also can imagine him sitting on a stool with a fag in his mouth in the pub in Ammanford. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got that look about it, and he might have a bit of a pouch. Like he doesn't.
It's the moustache.
Yeah,
it's the moustache.
He's got a bun.
And we've discussed this before. He looks a bit like John Bonham.
Yes.
And John Bonham's a builder, and that makes him look a bit like a builder.
In fact,
he looked very comfortable in the building site. Actually, it looked like.
Well, he was comfortable enough to have a shit there, wasn't he?
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's as comfortable as you can take.
That's the gold standard of comfort.
Yes. In fact,
are you comfortable enough to have a shit in a location?
I would say from now on we should refer to him as Johnny Wang Mun Wei. That should
only get that if you're from a specific valley in southwest Wales.
Yes.
Anyway, but we're transmitting it to the universe and the world.
Mm-hmm. So as much as we like Lang Mun Wei, the thing for me was I knew all that, but Meng Yen Man I've never really paid attention to before. But he's really fucking good in this, and he was in The Fairy, the Ghost, and I.Kuang.
Yeah,
we talked about on Food not that long ago. Apparently he was one of the Seven Little Fortunes as well, right? Back in the day. He was one of that group, but for whatever reason didn't go that much into film. He's also in, I suppose his other big role is Coward Bastard.
Yeah.
And
we spoke about him because he's Yun Man, isn't it? It's just he's got a different name on screen.
Yeah. And
so he's a proper Yun, so he's a proper Seven Little Fortune.
And fan favourite, Daggers 8.
Yes.
Is him as well. So it was one of those times where something was just highlighted for me, and I was like, okay, I should probably keep Meng Yen Man in mind a bit more going forward, because he's very good at this. He brings his A game, right? He doesn't let side down or anything like that. So, yeah.
See, I was when I was throughout watching this, and particularly the action in this, I kept getting reminded of Dirty Ho. Right? But like a good version of Dirty Ho.
Oh yeah, you don't like Dirty Ho.
I still don't like Dirty Ho. I'm never gonna like Dirty Ho. But it's like an almost unpretentious version of that super complex action that you have with, dropping things, making other people move things, all of this kind of like manipulating objects around people, shapes and kung fu, which was just really, really impressive.
I mean, it doesn't quite go as, there's not as much use of props in this,
no, well, there's bits and bobs. It's like there's like scabbards flying about, there's swords nicking weapons off people. No, it's not wall to wall in the same way as on props as Dirty Ho, but it reminded me of that that use of props. When they were using props, it reminded me of that, and it was that quality, in my opinion.
Which, again, just to remind people, because this is the I.Kuang, this was a screenplay by I.Kuang as well, and the source novel had previously been adapted into a 2-part film back in 1961. But I don't know if that's still extant, or if it would. Well, no, it wouldn't have anywhere near the this level of martial arts, obviously. But but it's interesting because 82, I think, is not quite the end yet. But I think for a lot of people, we've mentioned this before, that they think of Shaw as done or on the way out or something like that. And I kind of see what they mean. It is a bit of treading water and resting on laurels, as opposed to, but fuck, when treading water and resting on laurels is this good. Like, I mean, the three films, imagine, they all came out in 82, right? They came out in 82, even if one was made in 81. Imagine just, and not as a retrospective, not as a big deal, just as a casual Hong Kong resident, you could have just sauntered along to your local cinema and watched all three of these films and more on a big screen in the same year.
Yeah.
That's fucking...
Oh,
that's a gone era, isn't it? That's...
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because I was going to say that exact thing at the end after we talked about Human Lanterns, but I was really struck to think that if Shaw ends in 87, that this is 5 years before, and there's nothing threadbare looking about this. There's nothing that seemed to me, I mean, maybe, again, I haven't seen enough early Shaw to know for sure, but it didn't seem like it was going through the motions. In Human Lanterns, which we're going to talk about in a moment, I was blown away by the lighting, by the set deck, by everything.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Because Human Lanterns is
film.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
But I think... sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but I think the reason that Shaw Brothers is seen that way in the 80s is that Shaw Brothers never moves outside of the studio, and everyone else did.
Yes.
So anything.
Yeah, and plus it's a bit of pick and mix, isn't it? Because it's maybe, you know, all this stuff they would have established in an earlier decade, and now it's just moving things around in different formulation, which is fine. It's enough for me. But but it is a slightly different thing from the first time you would have seen that stuff on screen.
Exactly, and it's the sets don't necessarily look threadbare, but the format kind of is. You know,
and the sets have been seen a million times before,
and they didn't. It's always it's usually period stuff. You know, there's not a lot of contemporary stuff in the 80s. Some interesting stuff, but not a lot of contemporary stuff that Shaw's doing in the 80s. You know, and this is you know, these films are made a year before something like Wheels on Meals, or you know, and that's. You know, and you know, you look at what Jackie Chan was doing, what Golden Harvest were doing, and Sammo Hung was doing in that period, and it's chalk and cheese, you know, and it looks, you know, it's a blessing and a curse, isn't it? Is that Shaw Brothers always looks like Shaw Brothers? Yeah. But the problem is Shaw Brothers always looks like Shaw Brothers, whereas
it's weird as well. It's that whole thing about you start off as a musician, and then just as you start to get really good and proficient at your everyone gets bored and thinks you're boring and goes off and listens to punk, right? It's like it's that thing, right? Like you can't pretend not to be good. You know, you can't. It's disingenuous, right, to pretend that you can't play your guitar and do wonky guitar solos, but no one wants to hear it, kind of thing. But with the benefit of hindsight, in the same way as some people can now appreciate. I mean, they're wrong about things like Yes and stuff, but some people have gone back and you know, but now you can go back and the 80s Shaw is a treasure trove, of stuff. There's a lot of stuff, and maybe a lot of people are now finally coming around saying, what was our problem with this? This is fucking great. Like, especially like I said, now that the era has passed, you're really like, oh fuck, look what they used to be able to go and see in the cinema, and now you know.
Yeah. No, well, we just reviewed it for the last, not in ShawScope, didn't we? Yeah.
Well, exactly.
Because that's what's in cinemas now.
Yes. Yeah.
And 20 years ago, it was Storm Riders, you know, and 10 years before that, it was.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, at a certain point, we're going to look back fondly on Storm Riders.
Well, funnily enough, I was actually just thinking of revisiting Storm Riders, thinking, who would be as bad as I remember.
Who would have thunk it, right? That we would actually,
seek out I.Kuang.
Yeah, so you know, in the future, you know, that Avenging Fist film is really good.
I should say though, I do feel like we do need to give viewers a heads up that the print that has English subs is cropped so that you can't read the ends of the subs. It's super muddy and hard to see. And then when you see the Celestial DVD that doesn't have, it's gorgeous. Like, so I mean, I would say, Darren, you want to go back and, now that you basically know the story, watch it so that you can see it, because it's almost another movie.
Oh yeah,
Again.
yeah. No,
You know.
again, I agree. Well, if you can make the same comparison between the old yellow DVD box Chinese Super Ninjas,
Yes.
and 5-element ninjas, because that was the same sort of print. Except
My tip to viewers, because this is what I did, my tip to viewers is get both copies perfectly legally, of course. Rip them yourselves into digital copies on your computer, and then open one with a VLC media player, and then open the other film underneath it and slightly below, so the subtitles read below the screen.
See.
There we go.
He doesn't tell us this shit, does he?
Before, no.
Well, I didn't realize I was dealing with orangutans. That's clearly the way to do it.
In my case, you clearly do know this.
You do eat a lot of bananas and punch people when I say left turn Clyde.
Left turn Clyde, yes.
Anyhow, shall we move on to?
I thought not occurred to you to do that.
No. That's now that you say it, it seems obvious in hindsight.
Yeah.
But it did not occur to me at the time. It would have been a lot.
Sorry, I genuinely thought you already had this trick in your arsenal. But,
no. Don't assume wherewithal with the other members of this podcast.
There was even, I mean, like just watching the final fight scene, and when they kind of do power up their dual blades, like it was so much clearer that like his heart seemed to explode before he flew back. But again, I couldn't even see that on that first print.
So what did you?
We should mention as well. It's a little bit of a shit effect, isn't it?
Well, So I wanted to say, but it's with enough goodwill, it's fine. Yeah,
it's endearing. It's adorable.
It's a little strobing effect they do basically.
It's like mirrors, isn't it? It's like this mirror thing. Yeah,
and then they cut to the other person, and the other person's just like totally mesmerized, right? Like, and it's not entirely convincing, but you go with it, right? It's fine. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
So Nick, just out of interest, so how did you just watch them side by side?
No, I watched them twice. I watched it once. I watched it once with subtitles and barely could see it, and then watched it knowing what the story was. Watch it so that I could enjoy the actual action.
Well, okay. So me and my fellow Mensa members.
Aaron
wants a toilet break, does he?
Aaron wants to go to the toilet, please.
Go on then. Okay. Right turn, Clyde.
Okay. Yes, right turn, Clyde.
Fucking hell, it's Fred Titman.
I feel like I can boil this down pretty quick. Two men get in the fiercest pissing contest you've ever seen over lanterns. One of them hires Ed Gain to make his, and things do not go well.
Brilliant. There we go.
Ed Gain in a monkey suit.
Yes.
Are we saying Gain now? I thought it was Ed Gain.
Well, I say Gain, but
Gain.
It was peer pressure.
Nick's known for his intimidating peer pressure.
Oh, I'll make you into a lantern.
It's kind of mistake. It reminded me a little bit.
How much do you want?
Of that Robert Zemeckis film, Used Cars, but it was used lanterns.
Yes. No, I'm going to be upfront. I loved this movie. Intensely to a degree. I'd never seen this before, and I can't believe that I'd never seen this before.
My mea culpa with this as well was I'll get into specifically why this would be, and it'd be interesting to see what Darren's experience with it as well. But I went back, I read my, again, annoyingly in print so everyone can read it review, which is very disparaging of this film. And
really?
Well, I'll explain why specifically. But no, this time watching it, I was like, this is great fun. Like, this is really good fun beginning to end. There's a very specific reason as to why I didn't feel that before, but I'll get to what that was,
Because what I want to say is for me, as the thing starts to unfold, I was stunned by the beauty of the film. I thought the lighting was like magnificent, like chiaroscuro up the ass, like just gorgeous film. Beautifully framed. Every shot's beautifully framed. But it's got the Mario Baba kind of color gel stuff with Lucio Fulci at least level gore scenes, plus the Wuxia fighting and all the Shaw brothers that they bring to it.
Yeah.
And there was
the Shaw sets have rarely looked so good, right? I think like it's not one of those instances where you're like, oh, that fucking street again. It's like it
didn't feel studio bound, even though I suspect it's entirely shot in the studio. I somehow didn't feel like it was. Maybe because it's so dark, that's done so well that the darkness obscures where the corners of the rooms and stuff that they shot in are. But and it's got, well, it's definitely lowly into the Innsmouth look quite a ways, right? He's made the deal with Dagon and
frog people.
Yes, yeah. And he's amazing. I mean, it's almost hard to believe that he's the same guy from Stranger Than the Gunfighter and the few things that I know on Five Fingers, because he is magnificent in this. But anyway, does somebody want to get into a bit more into the plot before we?
Well, I think you kind of covered it, really.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, though, is that anyone who hasn't heard of Human Skin Lanterns, right? If they're that way inclined, they're going to fucking see it anyway, because you can work out by the title that it's about a man who makes lanterns out of people's skin.
Yeah.
Right.
So we should say that the two leads are Lao Wing and Chen Quan-tai, right? Those are the warring lantern makers, and
Mr. Tan and Mr. Lung.
Yes, and there's an upcoming lantern festival as well, so that's kind of turning the heat up, right? And basically they're always usurping, cuckolding, pissing each other off. Until Lao Wing goes off and finds Hermit Lo Li and gets him to procure lanterns on his behalf. And he never thinks, oh yeah, this dude who I, cruelly scarred for no reason at all when he's not going to have a chip on his shoulder. I'm sure it'll be fine.
I love that, like, 20 minutes before this movie is over, he's walking down the street being like, could it be the guy that hates me, that I scarred, that was earlier terrorizing my wife in my own home?
We should mention that the whole film is slightly set up as if there's going to be a twist, and there isn't.
No.
Basically, from the beginning, Loli's a fucking maniac who wears a skull-faced mask and clawed animal paw gloves and a furry suit, and kidnaps
Which sounds like it should be ridiculous, and it's not. It's terrifying.
But it's also ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
Because
he bounces around like a monkey.
It's that weird. What's the name of that film? It's the first Insidious film, where it's that line between scary and stupid, like that is quite unnerving. Right?
The part that surprised me was like, it works when it's in the dark and his face is kind of floating around, and when he's running around. But I was surprised that it worked in the full daylight. The first time he appears in full daylight and he's running down this kind of hill, gambling around in slow motion. I was like, oh, it's still really creepy.
Well,
for some reason
it's conceptually weird enough, right? Because clearly to see a man running around like that in the daylight, you're like, holy fuck, he's off his rocker. Like, that's scary.
Yes.
This man is totally. There's no reasoning with him. I mean, look.
It also reminded me a little bit of the Buto dancing in Taro Oishi's Horrors of a Malformed Man. There's something about the movement that's also jarring, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's like this kind of floppy, dancey kind of movement, isn't it? It's like this weird, otherworldly kind of
jerky. It's just
and if you haven't seen it before as well, it's not immediately evident because we're in Shaw Brothers, and Shaw Brothers made films with real monsters that are meant to be real that actually look worse than that.
Right.
Until you find out that it's a suit in the film, in the plot, then you don't actually know whether you're in supernatural territory either.
Yes.
So it works on that level as well.
And then you do then get the Scooby-Doo ending where he is unmasked and he does tell them, like, his whole plot. awesome. And
Which you already know as the viewer anyway.
Yeah, from the very beginning.
No one has to be Angela Lansbury to work out.
Yes. When we've seen him flaying people like an hour before. Yeah.
Sorry, I just realized that visual reference was lost in the podcast.
Yeah, Clive was pretending to type.
Like she wrote.
She wrote. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and yes, so Loli goes around skinning women, and so we should also state. So first of all, sorry, we did want to see the new 88 Blu-ray, 88 films Blu-ray version to listen to our friends over at Podcast on Fire, Kenny B and Co do the commentary, but we didn't have that version to hand. And that version is fully uncut. We had the German Blu-ray, which is almost uncut, right? It's like 99.9%. There's like one brief scene that runs a few seconds is missing, and that's about it. And I think that's one of the reasons I enjoyed this film more, is because I think the first time I saw it, it might have been cut. So you wouldn't have had the whoever's doubling nudity for Cho Seng-wan, for example, when I don't think that would have been in it. You wouldn't have the blood running down the breasts, and a lot of that stuff would have been removed. And so because it's full on. Like I really was taken aback by those playing scenes. Here's a question: in the first victim, Cho Seng-wan, when she's caught, the first thing he does is he slices her head open and he pours like molten mercury or something into the top of her head. Mm-hmm. Why does he do that then?
It's got to be to loosen the skin, surely. That was my guess.
How does that work?
Well, I think you might be able to get chemicals that loosen the skin if you're going to skin someone or an animal.
Is that something they do when they skin animals? Do they put chemicals on the top of their head?
Well, I don't really know.
Is this when you get something, Darren, and now you refuse to back down? You're just gonna keep on going.
No, I'm without any knowledge. I'm doubling down on it.
All right.
I think it's for loosening the skin.
All right. I mean, in your defense, I'll go from attack to defense now. There's a reason. I don't think they just. I mean, you never know. They could have just said, "Wouldn't it be cool if we poured mud?"
Yeah, I think that's possibly the case. But anyway,
but he doesn't do it again for any of the other victims, does he? It's only that first scene.
No, he does. No, he threatens the second one.
Come out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't remember the molten liquid coming out again. Anyway, so we know what we're talking about in terms of we are, near as damn it to uncut. But if you want full uncut one, get the 88 films Blu-ray and you get some commentary on there as well. This is great fun, isn't it? I mean, we haven't actually. Me and you, Nick, we've kind of gushed a little bit. We haven't actually found out if Darren did this film or not.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's I've never seen it anywhere else. Not even something like Boxers All Men, which is kind of a mixture of kind of traditional kung fu and out and out horror. It's not the same as this because this is still kind of a kung fu film.
Well, yes, and I think that's so. Have you always liked this film, though?
I liked it more now that I saw more of it and saw it in a better condition.
Same here. But also,
I saw it first.
The reason I like this film, really like this film now, and I did. So I'm guessing you had a similar experience to me. Is when we were coming up in this fandom, we were led to believe that Human Lanterns was kind of like, you got to see Human Lanterns because it's like in the same. It's like Untold Story or
No, it was in that same conversation.
It was considered like a proper nasty, right? And whereas if you're not expecting it, it's certainly conceptually properly nasty and creepy. It's not super. There's not that much on-screen gore, especially if you've been led to believe it's like, you know, like a early Peter Jackson film or something like that, like we were, right?
Yeah.
And plus, we weren't necessarily looking at it as a kung fu film either, right? Which it is. It's more of a kung fu mystery than it is a horror film.
It's a real hybrid.
Yeah, yeah,
and it's neither really.
Yeah. So I think before, and I'm sensing there's a few other films I have to go back and rewatch that probably fall into the same category for me. Whereas I was misled. I was misled by the treachery of others, sir, and I was ultimately disappointed. But coming fresh to it now, I was just seeing it as a kung fu mystery hybrid with outrageous scenes, and as such, it's wonderful. It's like really good, but really looking, like you said as well, Nick, and just the fucking collapsing house scene.
Yep, that's mad.
Jeez, that looked dangerous.
Yep. And even his house had elements of almost like the Sam Raimi's shack that, from the Evil Dead films, like with all the kind of stuff hanging out, the way it was lit.
See, I was thinking Bride of Frankenstein when the tower falls down.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was thinking it is Bride of Frankenstein, the old mill.
Mm-hmm. Right.
At the with the water wheel, and it's on fire, and then it collapses. There's a real, as well as, and I hesitate because let's not forget that in a world context, the stuff that was going on in 1982 in terms of gore is this is child's play.
Yes.
But it's the gore in it is still kind of unsettling because it lingers.
Yeah. And Lowly's cackling over the whole thing.
Exactly, and he's loving it.
Yeah,
but there is an old sort of an old school horror.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's something of the Bava Ricardo Freda, even like I mentioned as well. But there's something even of universal horror in this as well. Right. As well as having a shitload of good kung fu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is the kind of it's a little bit in the same. I suppose in recent years you could, in the same sort of lineage, things like the Detective D films, right, where it's period mystery with a little bit of action and some gothic and and I love that. Like those type of hybrids are few and far between, so they should be. And I didn't get on with the first one so much, but the recent the Young Detective D film prequel, I quite like that, for example.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and I suppose another one actually is another one I need to rewatch, Butterfly Murders.
Oh yeah. It's and again similar era as well, isn't it?
Yes, In fact, Butterfly Murders might be even earlier. In fact, I hadn't thought about it.
Butterfly Murders.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it until now, but I'm wondering if Butterfly Murders might have been a little bit of an influence on this film, even in terms of lighting and stuff, and because that's a very giallo-looking kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So directed. So we should talk about the director as well, Sun Chung, out of Taiwan. I noticed the first. So he started as an actor. Apparently, he was in a handful of things, and I just noticed on tangent. One of the first things he acted in is a film called One-Legged Fiend, which I want to see.
I'm interested.
Yes, and so he directed quite a lot of stuff for Shaw, and then went off and he did a few interesting things post Shaw as well, right? He did Fistful of Talons, which is Billy. Is that Billy Chow?
Billy Chong.
Billy Chong. City War.
Avenging Eagle as well.
Yeah. While still at Shaw, and Angel Hunter as well. He did. But it's interesting. It made me think as well that I should probably, like, I've seen a few Sun Chung films and he's one of those names. But this time it made me think I might have to sit down and pay a little bit closer attention to the cinema of Sun Chung.
Yeah, well, see, because my thing with Sun Chung is I can't get beyond Avenging Eagle, right? Which is on some sort of fucking pedestal as one of the best kung fu films ever made. It's not. I can't fucking stand it. I think it's shit.
We're in Dirty Ho.
This is me on the Dirty Ho again.
Right. Get off that Dirty Ho, Darren.
But yeah,
You'll catch something.
I will. Yeah, well, already have. But no, actually, the same as you for different reasons. I'm thinking, no, actually, I really like what Sun Chung was doing here visually.
Yeah.
But also just the way that the plot is woven. You know, because I.Kuang will write the script, fair play, and it's an excellent script.
I.Kuang again. Yeah.
Yeah, but characterization and how the script is delivered is obviously why the film works. And yeah, actually, I really like the beats and the emphasis that Sun Chung puts on, you know, on this stupid hubris, you know, Chen Quan Tai. And yeah, there's something very interesting about Sun Chung that I'm going to go and revisit as well, even though Avenging Eagle is actually shit.
Yeah, there was an element of, like, just two rich dudes in a dick measuring competition. It was like you know, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos get their comeuppance. There's a few things that I really enjoyed. Just again, back to Lo Li, because his performance is so committed and so wonderful. There's an early scene where he's bathing nude in a little pool, and Mr. Tan's younger sister, but he's like, "Oh, come on in, don't be shy." She's like, she just screams and runs away. And then all of his giggling, like when he runs around with a big black bag, we haven't mentioned, where he just like catches, like he's like a butterfly catcher, just catches ladies in, and then he takes them back, and there's a lot of him peeping up their skirts and giggling maniacally, and he's just he's given it his all. Like there's he's
but
not.
I like that, but that's all explained as well. It's so right at the end, and actually the character, the actor we haven't mentioned here as well is, we mentioned Lo Mang. We didn't mention Sun Chung.
Sun Chung as the police sergeant.
Who's in this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sergeant Boone. Yeah. Who, I love the part where they both...
Silver!
He's up it again.
where they both, like, both of these two asshole rich guys who've been having this whole thing, they both show up at one point and they're both like, "Do your fucking job!" And he's like... I've been trying, and you've been no help at all. Yeah.
But what I was saying, so this whole maniacal thing with Lo Li's cackling and him looking upskirts and just all the mad shit he does throughout the film, he actually explains it himself near the end.
Yeah, he's an incel. He gives us his whole incel speech.
Yeah.
Right?
But also it's like, yes, of course it's an incel thing. But also... it's, well, I'm just a body without a soul.
Right.
You know, it's just this massive nihilism in that statement.
Yeah. He says, I want no more heroes, he says. Yeah. He's doing his Strangler song right there. Yeah.
Yes, also worth mentioning in this Shaw remake of Never the Twain is Honey. Well, of course.
I would love to see that. I would love to see Windsor Davies.
Well, Windsor Davies and Donald Sinden were, of course, they both studied Southern Fist. Little known fact.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and dealt and will have dealt in lanterns at some point.
No doubt. They would have got some of them human skin ones that Ilsa Koch made in the concentration camps or something.
So who the hell plays Lo Li's character then in this British sitcom version?
Sid James.
Richard Dryers.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway, so Tanny is also.
Yeah.
I love seeing Tanny.
Yeah, Tanny's good.
Yeah. Always like a bit of Tanny.
Yeah.
I
like any film star with just one name.
Yep.
Particularly if they're not from the West.
Yeah, Mako, pretty good.
Yeah.
The thing about Tanya as well, and in conjunction, because Lo Li's in it as well, it's a bit of a kind of it makes you think of the black magic films as well.
Yeah.
Which this is clearly slightly, that's also in that continuum as well.
Yeah.
One last thing I quite like is the scene where somebody's out wandering around town, and then blood is dripping through this awning, and then there's this kind of reveal of all the heads just kind of up there. It's just all good stuff. As I said,
it's great.
I can't honestly recommend this film enough. I guess to people who are okay with this kind of stuff. But I guess if you're renting or buying or watching a film called Human Skin Lanterns, you probably know what you're getting into. Well, they are good. Truth in advertising is pretty good in this.
To your point,
instance.
though, Nick, I would say almost the opposite, because it didn't work on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't sell it. Okay.
Don't oversell. Just. Okay. Yeah. We've got to mention as well choreography by Tong Kai and his brother Huang Pai Chi, the latter of whom is in it. Again, there's not a huge amount of it, but it's there and it's serviceable. It's good. It serves the plot and it keeps things ripping along. So the original Chinese title, Ren Pi Deng Long, that film from, is it 1993 or thereabouts? Ghost Lantern has exactly the same Chinese title, and is in fact in the Essential Guide to Hong Kong Movies, Ricky and Toby's book, is in there under the title All New Human Skin Lanterns, which might lead you to believe that it's a remake, but it's not. But there's a lantern which has been made from Ching Miao's skin. And her soul is, anyway, it's not a particularly good film, but it's not a remake of Human Lanterns, despite having the same title.
Yeah. Oh, also, was it just me that was as in awe as the characters when I finally saw the Human Skin Lanterns?
They were.
I mean,
no, because I was expecting the square ones.
Me too. I was kind of surprised that they were a little.
And all of a sudden, they were like, Virgin Mary effigies.
Yeah. Votive things. Yeah, they were not what I expected either at all. In fact, I was convinced.
The only thing that stole away from that, though, was when I saw them, they're not made from human skin. They don't look in any way, shape, or form made from human skin.
But that's the skill of the craftsman, Clive.
I suppose so. Yes.
I was surprised because I figured that Mr. Long's wife's mole, because it was kind of like the camera lingers on it at one point, and I was like, oh, that's going to be the big reveal. He's going to get the lantern and he's going to look at it and he's going to like, oh, that's my wife's mole on that lantern. And then he does make a big fuss about it when he's skinning her. He's like, oh, this mole's awesome. And then it's in no way really features into the end of the movie at all. It was like, did they forget it? Was that supposed to be going somewhere? Or was it just?
Yeah, that would have been good as like a little forehead thing on a deity, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm, yeah,
the mole. Yeah,
I believe that might be what is referred to as a red herring.
Ah,
yeah. Right. So
it's not. It's a mole, actually.
Yeah,
so
I was gonna say. I'm pretty sure it was a red mole. Actually.
So what it is, it's just a blemish. It's an imperfection.
Yeah.
When you're born.
It's not a fish attached to a woman's face.
That explains why the last time I ate herring, it was disgusting. And a very small portion as well. I was quite disappointed.
Was it a bit chewy?
Yeah, it was. So anyway, Nick, time for you to wrap us up and end. Please end this.
Epic. So rest in peace, our dear Ni or E.
Being turned into a lantern as we speak.
Thanks for the many films and books that you wrote.
Yeah.
And
have a rest now while you can.
Mm-hmm. Looking forward to you all being back again, whoever you are out there, next time on In ShawScope. Toodaloo.
Bye-bye.
That's rubbish.
Fuck you.
And you have a small penis.